chat. My concern would not be that they held anything back. My concern would be that they're not great. And here's the thing, Jason. So Alabama watches that game today before their game takes off, right? And Alabama fans have to be thinking to themselves, well, we're beating that. Because if you can't complete the deep passes and you shut, I think Saban's going to try to do the Bill Belichick thing. He's going to try to take away Xavier Worthy. However, by any means necessary. He's going to say, all of you other dudes are going to be the guys that have to beat us. And, oh, by the way, good luck trying to run the ball on our defensive line. So I think Alabama watches the Texas game today and they think, oh, we're going to beat Texas next week. But we haven't seen the Alabama performance yet. And if the Alabama offense struggles with a new quarterback, let's say it's 17, let's say it's like, let's say it's 16-3 at halftime. Wasn't that what it was for the Longhorns? Yeah, it was 3 field goals.
16-3, yeah.
And 1 touchdown. It'll be interesting to watch the Alabama game now in the context of how do they look from a first game standpoint compared to Texas? Because I think the Texas defense looked really good. I mean, there's nothing to nitpick with the Texas defense at all. They created 2 turnovers off of interceptions in the first half. They got another one. So Texas wins the turnover battle 3-0 today. That's really good. Ethan Burke played well. A lot of guys kind of in their first. David Benda led the team in tackles in his first start after not playing a whole lot last year. You know, there was one guy on defense. Someone made a comment earlier. I don't know what they said. They might have said Derek Williams is better than Jalen Catalon. Like, I don't know about that.
Catalon, I don't think, I was shocked. Like, I didn't even see him in the box score.
I was about to say, did he make a tackle?
No. Derek Williams had 3 tackles, 1 solo, 1 pass breakup.
Are you telling me Catalon didn't make the? You tell me Catalon didn't make the stat sheet?
Did not make the stat sheet.
I'm looking at it now. My God, there's like 30 guys on defense that did make the stat sheet. Look, you know, here's what I'm going to say about Jalen Catalon. First game back, new program. Maybe he got hurt. I don't know. Like, I literally don't remember seeing him.
I don't think he started, did he?
What's that?
He was supposed to, yes. Yeah, I know, but I don't think he started. I need to look that up, like the actual starter. For some reason, I want to say that he didn't get the start today, but I might be wrong about that.
He's listed in the stat book as one of the starters at safety. It says in the official stat book that Watts, Brooks, Catalon, Barron, and Michael Taft started on defense today.
Okay, that's what threw me off, because Taft I knew was a starter, and I thought maybe he was in place of Catalon, but I guess not.
I'll just say this about Catalon. Here, I'm not going to overreact, because last year, Jalen Ford didn't show up in the stat book at all. No tackle. He wasn't in the stat book. And I was like, you can't have your middle linebacker. You can't have your Jalen Ford can't go over in an entire game. And I thought, that's not good. That's really ominous. And then he was an All-American. So it turned around. Kudos to Jalen Ford. I'll let him be the poster boy for defensive players that don't show up in week 1 and can still end up having great seasons. Catalon just didn't make any plays today. And I don't say,
to be fair, they weren't really tested the second. No. I mean, the back end of the defense, especially the middle of the field, they weren't really tested by JT Daniels and Rice's offense.
But he didn't get involved in a single tackle. So
that's surprising. Yeah.
No, I don't. He didn't get beat in coverage, but he didn't make the stat sheet. So let's see what he does. And look, we'll find out next week. If next week he's not on the stat sheet, then you've got an issue. But like, and all the defense was so good. I didn't think Barron Sorrell was great today. And Sorrell,
I don't remember seeing Barron do much of anything.
Sorrell ends up with 2 assisted tackles, no quarterback hits, no sacks, Meanwhile, Ethan Burke had 1.5 sacks and should have had 2.5 sacks. I mean, he missed one late that he's going to have nightmares about. But
although they gave him a half sack on that one where I didn't think he was really involved. I forget who he split. Oh, was that one with Benda? Must have been one Benda, yeah.
And you know what? Good for Benda on that play, because just a couple of plays before that, he misread. Like, I don't know what he thought he saw, but he knifes in coverage. I think he thought maybe it was going to be a screen, and the receiver ran right past him. And it was a big pass play. Rice ends up not getting any points on that drive, but he comes right back after that play, and that's when the sack happened. And what I noticed about that was that was the Anthony Hill role. That's where we've been hearing that Anthony Hill, in that exact position, they're going to be using him all over the defense to help create pressure on the quarterback. Good play on Benda. I mean, it was a violent play. It was a good play overall. Thought he was pretty good. I didn't really have anything negative to say about David Benda today. Even with that one bad play, I thought on the whole he was pretty good.
Yeah, I wrote the same thing in my comments. I singled out the one play where it was like probably Rice's biggest play of the game, I think. But overall, I mean, listen, you lead the team in tackles, 6 tackles, 3 solos, half a sack. That's a pretty solid day. Anytime you lead the team in tackles, you're doing something right. You know, I'm sitting there, I keep looking over my shoulder. I'm so pissed. This Spectrum, I don't get SEC Network. I don't get Longhorn Network. I'm signing up for YouTube TV, though.
Let me tell you, hey, YouTube TV is what I watched Fox on my main screen right here, so it looked like I was looking into the camera, but I was literally watching the game. Mm-hmm. But I've got a TV that I have set up over here. YouTube has a deal where you can pick any game, and then it go 4-box with it. So if there's 4 games on, you can watch 4 games on your TV all at once. You can choose which audio of which game you want. Kind of digging the YouTube TV right now with regards to how they're presenting their college football package.
Well, Spectrum has officially lost my business, brother, after today, so I'm canceling.
I'm trying to figure out what game I want to go to right now. I'm looking for the Alabama game.
It starts at 6:30. A&M, I think, is
what
on
game?
right now.
That's on the big ESPN?
A&M's ESPN, I believe, and Bama's SEC Network.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching that game on all 4 channels here in a little bit.
Georgia midway through the second, dude. 7-0 is all up on UT.
Well, and there are a ton of games involving ranked teams today. Ohio State is the 3rd ranked team in the country. Now, granted, they were on the road playing a conference game to open up the season against Indiana, but that wasn't anything that anybody would want to write home about. So there will be teams today that don't play well, that you just kind of that you got to get better. You know, the cliche is you play your first game, you always make the most improvement between week 1 to week 2. If you're Texas, you're certainly hoping for that. Like that would have to be the hope. By the way, feel free to get your super chats in the Specs chat line. Blake, let's get that Specs logo up if you get a chance to, or can we not? I don't know. I just noticed it's not there. It was like a weird little box, actually. When we look at the offense, get your super chats in. We'll go right to them. We're waiting on Anwar Richardson to join us in probably in about 15 minutes. What'd you think about the running backs today? Baxter, Blue, Brooks. Anything jump out from those 3 guys?
You know, Brooks did about what I expected him to. He ran well, and the touchdown catch he had was a walk in the park for him. He did drop one. Of course, it would have been another touchdown. He then comes back later in the game, makes that exact same catch. But, Baxter obviously had the one big run. You hated to see him get injured, and I'm curious, like you, to hear what Sark has to say about that. I thought Jaden Blue, honestly, might have looked the best out of all the backs, man. Blue has an explosive quality to him that maybe the other backs don't have, other than Keelan Robinson, of course. But Jaden Blue, I'm trying to remember what his track times. People forget, man. He was
like a 10-7 guy, but then didn't run track as a senior, so we never got a chance to see.
but people forget just how explosive of an athlete he is, and I thought that flashed some today. I thought Jaden Blue had a good day and may have carved himself out a little bit of a niche, especially if Baxter's unable to go next week, or we'll see what his status is. But I think you can have a pretty decent 1-2 punch with Brooks and Blue if that's what you're forced to go with next week. I think both those guys ran pretty well.
What was your? Let me give you this. Your single biggest positive of all of your positives today. By the way, what up, Austin? Thank you, longtime viewer, first-time chatter. Glad to have you here in the Specs chat doing that thing. I'm watching the A&M game right now against New Mexico, waiting for the Alabama game to begin. So your single biggest positive, Jason, you can go in any direction you want, but if somebody says, just tell me about the single best thing I need to know from this game, what is it?
Easy, defensive line, and Tavondre Sweat in particular. I wrote that he was probably my MVP of the game. I thought that, I said in my matchups, I didn't give Texas a huge advantage on defensive line. I gave them an advantage, but not a huge advantage. I said, you know what? I want to see it with my own eyes, because I've been duped by this group before. I've been duped by this team before, where we've heard they dominated in scrimmages or practices, and then it ended up not holding true once the actual game started. So I said, hey, I want to see this defensive line dominate before I'm really going to buy in. Well, about midway through the first quarter, I was like, okay, I'm buying in already, because I thought the defensive line was the highlight of the game. You know what? And I'll tell you what, hey, it's a silly one, but Bert Auburn looked pretty good. Yeah, he missed a 56-yarder, but he did hit a couple big kicks, or a couple distance kicks, 40-plus yards. So I thought the kicking game looked pretty good overall, too, other than the kick out of bounds.
You know what? Low-key, the kicking game was really good today. Sanborn was good on the couple of punts that he had. And then, obviously, boy, I think you come away today feeling pretty good about the place-kicking job. Mm-hmm. Bert Auburn goes 3 for 3 in the first half. If he had missed even one of those field goals, and then suddenly it's 16-3 weirdly feels a lot better than 13-3, even though it's only 3 points and you're not up by 2 touchdowns either way. But, there was a little bit of breaking glass of the don't break glass in case of only an emergency. There were a lot of people who were really pissed off at halftime that were like, Quinn sucks, the offensive line sucks, we suck, Alabama's gonna kill us.
And it's funny, it was a pretty early meltdown on the boards. I mean, midway through the first, it's like, all right, time to get Quinn out of there. And this team
we had a official Case. We had like 4 people say Case McCoy is better than Quinn Ewers. I felt like the everything is fine meme, where the guy's sitting at the table and there's a fire burning in the background. I kind of felt like that in the first half, and then I told people, I was like, look, the reality is Texas is going to win this game comfortably. And this is what I said in the first half, and I said, look, by the time the game is over, I think you're going to look at the stat sheet and feel pretty good about where things ended. That Ewers' final numbers were going to look good, and they did. The running game numbers, they weren't great, if we're being completely honest. But if we look at the running game numbers, they end up rushing for 158 on 39 carries. 4.1 yards per carry is not great, obviously, by any stretch of the imagination. But if you take the Ewers sack numbers out of there, it does get a little bit better, but it was against Rice. The running game wasn't good enough. So it has to get a lot better. I think the thing that I would say, Jason, was the single best thing about this performance. You go into halftime, and it wasn't a great performance in a few areas. So they had their halftime talk, and I guarantee you the halftime talk would have sounded like this. Guys, we want a 3-and-out on defense, and we want the offense to come out and do the thing that they didn't do enough in the first half, go the distance of the field, punch it into the end zone, 3-and-out on D, touchdown in our very first drive on offense. Let's go. And what they actually did, if I'm not mistaken, The defense forces 3 straight 3-and-outs on defense to start the third quarter, and the offense scores touchdowns on each of the first 3 drives in the second half. So in the third quarter, Texas was excellent, and they did everything that the coaches would have wanted them to do, save Ewers hitting one of those receivers on those deep throws.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize that, but I'm looking. Rice actually in the third quarter had 4 straight 3-and-outs. Texas
every once in a while, Jason, I make an astute observation.
Yeah, Texas comes out, you're right, and touchdown in the third quarter. So, 21-point third quarter, that certainly opened things up. And, the JT Sanders catch and run score, that was a pretty easy one. The pass to A.D. Mitchell, I was like, oh, that's there all day. I was a little surprised we didn't see a little bit more from A.D. Mitchell. You and I both thought he'd have put up big numbers. 6 targets, 3 catches, 26. Had the nice.
He's not. Nobody better mention his name in the same breath with Xavier Worthy. To me, I don't give a shit what he does in practice. Xavier Worthy could have caught 20 passes today if all they wanted to do. Rice still hasn't covered Xavier Worthy. I mean, he's their best player on offense by a mile, and if Texas fan, he didn't drop any passes today. He probably should have had a couple of deep touchdowns.
The only mistake he made, he stepped out of bounds on that one. I'm like, okay, that's a mental mistake. You can't do that. But
yeah.
But overall, I mean, and I wrote the same thing. I mean, I feel like you're echoing kind of what I wrote in my post-game thoughts. I said, you know what? We've heard all the talk about A.D. Mitchell and JT Sanders, but I mean, this is Xavier Worthy. He's the guy that makes this offense go. And, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think I said that during the game. I was like, he's literally open every single play if they want to go to him, So.
And when they don't get cute and they keep it, let's say, either behind the line of scrimmage or up to about 10 to 12 yards, because today he had 10 yards of cushion on every play. So, and when they did take advantage of that and throw it to him short, he made first, second guys miss almost every time. Xavier Worthy still sensational. Blake says, I've got the latest on CJ from Anwar. You want to come in, Blake, and tell us what that is? Says, landed on the ball and hurt his ribs. Optimistic the injury is not serious. Okay. I mean, if he breaks a rib or really bruises his ribs, that leaves him obviously in doubt for next week. But anything short of, bruised ribs, he'll be day-to-day, and then I think you've got a chance next week. I think they need him. I think there's a reason why he was the first running back on the field today. We'll see what happens. I wanted to go back to this super chat question. Did the melting field surface... This is crazy that it was in the 160s.
Dude, that seems unbearable. Yeah.
Did the melting field surface affect Ewers? He didn't look comfortable. He kept picking up the turf like it was an issue. Will the night game help him?
I don't think that was an issue. I think someone on the TV broadcast said he was picking up the turf, like checking the wind almost, throwing some stuff. But
I mean, if the field was really, really hot, he wouldn't have been putting his hands on it.
I mean, he's been practicing in this heat for a month straight, so he should have been used to it by now. I'm not buying that.
I'm with you. They practice at 2:30 on Saturday on that same turf on days that were hotter than today. I mean, no offense, but it was like 110 a week ago. So it could. I wonder what 110 does. Would it have been 180 degrees?
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
It is. It almost makes me think that those readers are crazy. Will the night game help him? Maybe, but not a night game in Tuscaloosa. So, Benjamin, I thought Ewers was pretty damn good today on everything other than deep throws.
That's a big part of it, though, man. You got to hit those if you want to beat Alabama. You got to.
Well, it's a big if, but look, if he goes to Alabama next week, and I know it's not apples to apples because it's Rice, but he had a quarterback efficiency of 169.1. Here's the perspective I would give you. In the history of the Texas football program, Texas has had one quarterback in its history have a better for the season quarterback efficiency than 169. And that was Colt McCoy in 2008, and I think he was like 172. Now, let's not go crazy with quarterback efficiency. Like I'm not telling you that he was Colt McCoy vintage 2008. What I'm telling you is he finishes the game with a quarterback rating that you will take every game this season. You'll take 169 and you'll shake hands and not look twice. He didn't throw the ball deep down the field, and I just think we need to be prepared for the fact he's not good at that. Jason, there are people in our industry that work at other Texas football sites that mocked me and laughed at me because when Quinn Ewers was a prospect, I said, I don't think he throws a good deep ball. And people thought I was crazy. And I was like, look, I think he's great. I think he throws maybe the best short and intermediate ball that I've ever seen from a high school quarterback. But when it comes to deep balls, even in high school, his receivers were always waiting on the ball to get there. The difference in high school is that he would have guys like 20 yards wide open. So when he threw it deep and the receiver literally would stop and catch the ball and then run and score a touchdown, it just looked like a touchdown pass. It didn't look like that big of a deal. But even when he was in high school, by the way, nice play there, Texas A&M going up 7-0 on, who are they playing, New Mexico?
Nearly turned it over a play before. They fumbled it and got it back. And then
Noah Thomas, man, he's a young guy. They're really, really high on 15-yard touchdown pass. Connor Wigman with his first touchdown.
A little push off there in the end zone. But
hey, it's okay. They don't call it. It didn't happen. Matter of fact, Texas had a couple pass interference penalties they
should have been called.
That they probably should have gotten. But, by the way, can you and I just have a moment?
Okay.
That deep ball to A.D. Mitchell cost me $500, Jason.
300 here, yeah. I was like,
I'm like, I need 19 yards from A.D. Mitchell.
I almost came into the YouTube chat, and I was like, catch, like I didn't want to distract you, but I almost came into yours and Chad's YouTube chat.
Let me tell you, on that particular bet on Prize Picks, I had Ewers with the more on 2.5 touchdowns thrown. Hit that. I had Xavier Worthy with 12.5 plus on the fantasy score. I had Jonathan Brooks with less than 74.5 yards rushing, which I was a little nervous about when Baxter got hurt. I didn't realize that Jaden Blue was just going to come in and be the best running back on the team at that point. I had, well, hold on, where's it at? Sorry, I'm looking at I gotta go to my past entries. I had JP Richardson at TCU with more than 10.5 fantasy points. Hit that. And I had Michael Penix with more than 2.5 touchdown passes. He hit that easily. The only one I needed for a $500 payday was A.D. Mitchell to get to 45.5 yards receiving, and it should have happened. It should have happened. I'm going to have nightmares tonight about Quinn not sticking that throw, underthrowing the deep ball again.
Well, I dropped some death bombs in our Slack channel on that one. Yeah, that one hit both of us. Speaking of Prize Picks, my Frank Harris UTSA Prize Picks. 8 minutes left in the first quarter, so there's a lot of time. 0 for 3 for 0 yards for Frank Harris passing to start the game. So not off to the hottest start there.
Yeah, I need Frank Harris to deliver for me on a couple of Prize Picks to save my day. But I did, the thing that I felt like the Ewers and the Worthy plays we talked about on the Prize Picks video. Like, I was down for those. A little surprised that A.D. Mitchell didn't have a bigger day today. Let's talk about the transfers, right? A.D. Mitchell, kind of a quiet day. Jalen Catalon doesn't show up in the stat sheet. Gavin Holmes was named as a co-starter on the depth chart at the cornerback position, along with Terrence Brooks. And when the game ends, Gavin Holmes finished with 1 tackle. And I don't really remember. Malik Muhammad jumped off again. Boy, is Malik Muhammad the best defensive Is Malik Muhammad the best secondary player for the Longhorns? He might be, man.
Well, you could. I mean, if you factor in his fall camp, I mean, every time we check the sources, he was making interceptions and pick sixes, and I mean, he was all over the place today and limited action. But I mean, he was stuck to his guy pretty tight today. So I'm not ready to make that proclamation just yet that he's the best DB on the team, but you know, I might be after next week if he plays against Bama like he did this week. Yeah, someone mentioned Jade. Jade played pretty well too. So,
well, no, here's the stat. Texas had 4 pass breakups today on defense. 3 by DBs. Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams, Terrence Brooks. It does tell you a little bit about how bad JT Daniels is as a quarterback. Like, he's so bad, the DBs couldn't get their hands on balls.
And Muhammad, now he had the pass breakup, but he also finished with 5 tackles, so 1 off the team lead, and was, you know.
I'm telling you right now, Malik Muhammad is the best player in that Texas secondary. Best player in the first scrimmage, best player in the second scrimmage, one of the only guys on defense that really was mentioned to me in the third scrimmage, and he was the best DB for the Longhorns today. He had one of only 2 pass breakups by Texas DBs. He was second on the team with 5 tackles. But you know what? He led the team in solo tackles. 5 solo tackles. Nobody else on the team had more than 3. David Benda had 3 solo tackles. Devondre Sweat had 2 solo tackles. Keaton Crawford had 2 solo tackles. Nobody else. Not even Jalen Ford had a solo. Oh, Jalen Ford had 1 solo tackle today. So Malik Muhammad came into the game on the 3rd series on defense. The first guys that played were Derek Williams and Anthony Hill, the true freshmen, on. Well, I didn't see Jonte Cook until later in the game. By the way, this is if we wondered how much Texas is going to rotate their receivers, today the answer is just like a year ago, not much. Steve Sarkisian gets his guys on the field, and they stay on the field. Didn't see much of Jonte Cook until the 4th quarter, if at all. Isaiah Nayor didn't come in until really the second half. It was basically 3 guys at receiver on a day when it was 163 degrees on the field. The receivers were the receivers. Keep that in mind when we talk about expectations for the other receivers on this team. Unless there's an injury, it's the Whittington, Worthy, and A.D. Mitchell show with Jatavion Sanders at tight end, and there just wasn't much else in the passing game by design. Like, Sark just wasn't rotating those guys at all. I don't have a huge problem with that because I can remember when Tom Herman was rotating his receiver on every series, and it was like, whoa, stop. Like, how about you don't take your best receiver off the field? So I'm not going to bitch when that happens, and then also bitch when Sark just keeps his best players on the field. But we've had so much talk about Cook and Nayor and this team being 5 or 6 receivers deep. They are, potentially, but as it relates to, I think, what's going to happen on the field, this is a Texas offense that those are the main guys, and they're going to be the main guys next week against Alabama.
I thought Jonte flashed a little bit when he got in there late. He has a nice connection with Malik Murphy, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, listen, I would kind of like you. I mean, the Herman stuff used to be maddening with some of their player rotations. So, you know, if your top guys aren't just worn out, why would you ever take Xavier Worthy off the field? And, even Whittington, A.D. Mitchell, Sanders. I mean, you know, I didn't see DeAndre Moore. I don't know if he got in the game late or not. I'd have to go back and rewatch.
I'll look and see if he makes the participation chart.
But he didn't get any targets. I know that.
Yeah, and I don't remember seeing him.
Nayor had the 2 targets, 1 catch. So he got it. You know, I still wonder how close to 100% Isaiah Nayor is. I think he could be in that top group of receivers if he was truly 100% healthy. I still wonder about that a little bit, but. It's a good problem to have, man. You got some good young talent, and you know, you're right. You're not going to take Xavier Worthy off the field just so you get Jonte Cook a little bit more action.
I've gone 4-box on YouTube right now, so I've got Houston leading UTSA 7-0 in the first quarter. The other 3 games are all either in the studio or at halftime or post game. So I guess I'm just watching UTSA and Houston at this point. While we wait for Anwar Richardson, who I would guess should be here in the studio pretty quickly, which means Jason Sukume will be able to go enjoy the rest of a Saturday night on some potential YouTube TV. Is that where you're headed?
That's absolutely where I'm heading, and I got some ribs that I pulled off the smoker right before we came on here, so I can smell them. So as soon as Almar's coming here, I'm gonna go get me some ribs, man.
Hey guys, do us a solid while we wait for Anwar to get here, and I'm going to get game balls from Jason in just a second before he leaves. And by the way, let's see your game balls in the Specs chat. And do we have a super chat that we haven't gone to yet? No, we're all caught up on super chats. If you want to get in and ask a question and have it absolutely addressed by either one of us, even on Paxton, you can't call in. But if you give me $100 in the super chat, I'll give you an invite to our studio show, and you can come on.
Hey, you can give $100,
see your face, Paxton.
I'll call you and put you on speakerphone, Paxton, if you give $100 super chat.
Well, hey, I only say $100 because Anwar made that happen on the Drunk Uncle show on Wednesday nights a lot. Hey, you know what? It's not a super chat question, but I'll take this. A coach in lunacy. By the way, I love that name. Like, I don't know where you came up with that, but it cracks me up. What happened to all those redshirt O-linemen that were supposed to fix our O-line problems? You want to take a swing?
I don't have the answer, man. They didn't show up today. Again, I thought DJ Campbell really struggled. As I'm watching, I'm like, that's better than Cole Hudson. I mean, put Cole Hudson back out there, but then Nato came in late in the game, and I didn't get a chance to really focus on Nato, so I don't know how he did. Yeah, I don't know. That class is still very young, but yeah, you kind of expected a little bit more from those guys starting this game. But it's one game. Maybe they'll bounce back with a better performance next week. But it's not easy. But they certainly need to play better, especially on the interior. And even Kelvin Banks gave up the one sack. Like, I don't know if he was passing the guy off. It almost looked like he thought it was a screen pass or something. But he kind of slowed his guy down and then let him go. And I'm like, what was going on there? So it seems like there's a lot of communication issues among the offensive linemen today that they're going to have to get worked out.
My thought on the question before we go to Benjamin's super chat, I think they're young. And I think Kelvin Banks is exceptional. And I think all those other guys are second-year players. And of the guys that I would say, hey, they should be good by their second year, it would probably be DJ Campbell. He's a 5-star guy. So going into year 2, he's a starter. I expect a little bit better performance. The other guys, look, generally speaking, we talk about offensive linemen, if they're not super blue chips, and be clear about this, of that 7-man offensive line that Texas signed last year, back, in the class of, we're covering 2024 recruiting, so it sounds like a long time ago to say 2022. They've only been on campus for like 18 months, some of them just 12 months. Only 2 of those guys are super blue chips, which means top 70-ish players, top 65-ish players in the country. Those other guys usually take a couple of years, 2 years, 3 years before they kind of really hit their stride. When you think about that greatest offensive line that Texas ever had, 2005, 2006, with Senline and Jonathan Scott and Casey Studdard. Those guys really hit their stride in 2004 when they were in their 3rd seasons. So just something to keep an eye on. The expectations are those guys have to be really good now. Why? Well, because Texas needs them to. But whether or not it's realistic to expect these guys to be plus starters in the first game of their second year, probably not, actually. Just something to think about.
I would say the rule of thumb, like you said, is usually the 3rd year for offensive line.
Because we're not at the end of this year. We're at game 1 of this year. you know, if we get to the end of, if we get 12 games in and DJ Campbell isn't a plus player yet, then there's going to be some conversations. But I think today it was his first start. Maybe there were some nerves. Maybe there were some just first game things going on. I don't know. I'm a little more patient with the offensive line, but maybe I also have tempered expectations going in. I say that as the guy that questions this offensive line in the interior, but I'm not being too hard on because they haven't hit their development. By the way, Benjamin did say the ESPN Spectrum issue will be the death of Spectrum. Everyone I know is canceling Spectrum. Look, it ain't going to be like this for, like, my wife may not care. We don't have Spectrum. We did when I still lived in Austin. But if you're a sports fan, we joke like, Sports Center, don't really care about that anymore. I don't watch that. I'm not watching First Take. We can slam all of the things about ESPN that we don't like. But if you're a sports fan and you can't get sports live programming on ESPN or any of the ESPN channels, because I gotta let you know, Texas fans are gonna want to be on the SEC network a lot.
Not only is Spectrum screwing me with the ESPN deal, I looked online last night. My bill is going up $70, dude, from last month to the future months because all these whatever promotions are coming off.
And look, YouTube TV is not cheap. It's you know, for what it is compared, I think, to God, I needed Frank Harris to score a touchdown there and not. It's going to be 7-7 UTSA in Houston, pending a PAT. The Penn State West Virginia game has started. For those of you who are looking for something to put on TV, I'm looking for this Alabama game.
Yeah, I've got it going here on mine. 0-0, and looks like what is it, Middle Tennessee State. They're punting the ball away. Yeah, so screw Spectrum, man. So I did call them and like, hey, we'll give you a $15 credit for this ESPN thing, and then they had the gall to tell me like, oh, what we're recommending you do, go sign up for ESPN Plus. I'm like, hold on, y'all can't negotiate something, so you want me to go spend more money? Channel that y'all can't give me that you're supposed to be giving me? So, yeah.
All right, well, Alabama has the football for the first time against Middle Tennessee State. Here we go, Jalen Milroe. What will this offense look like tonight? Because I think a big way about how we talk about the game next week will be determined by what we think we learned from Alabama today. Did have this super chat, by the way, from Jamari Lee. By the way, I totally dig how you spell your first name. I noticed that during the watch along. I was like, oh, Jamari. J-A-M-A. I like that with the H and the I.
Speaking of that, how about it's no longer A.D. Mitchell? It's Adonai, is how they were saying. Adonai, is that how they were saying? But yeah, it was like, I guess he no longer wants to be called AD, so we've got to retrain ourselves.
What? No, he's A.D. Mitchell. I haven't spent the last 9 months calling that kid A.D. Mitchell, to now call him by his first name. Sark has some basic play calling today. Next week, I believe we get the Sark special. I don't think you'll find anybody, Jamari, that's going to disagree with that. I think... sorry, I'm distracted.
No, I got to think he'll have more tricks up his sleeve next week. You know, I thought he called a decent game today. I wasn't crazy about running Keelan Robinson up the middle, and I thought the fourth down going for it on that first series was madness, but I was like, that's Rice, you know. So, I mean, surely he wouldn't do that next week if they go, you know, what was it, 4th and 2 or something like that? No, was it longer than that? What, going for it on, no, the one, yeah, where Ewers throws the incompletion. But, yeah, some of the I thought Sark did a fine job today. And I'd give him a passing grade, not necessarily an A by any means, but yeah, to answer the question, I would think he'll have certainly more creativity and some tricks up his sleeve for next week.
Texas State beating Baylor 14-6 early in that game. That may even been like a second quarter score. Man, I need to look that up because that is not good. How deep into the first half are they? I'm assuming that game is in Waco. Blake says 1:14 left in the first quarter. Yeah, interesting. So let's go around the Big 12. Texas beats Rice 37-10. They don't cover. Okay. Duly noted. Kansas State now is about to be up 14-0 on Southeast Missouri State early in the second quarter there. Texas State, as we mentioned, beating Baylor 14-6. Baylor has the ball late first quarter. We'll keep you updated on that. UTSA and Houston. It's weird to think of Houston as a Big 12 school. I'm still not completely used to that. 7-7. Oklahoma State 7-0 over Central Arkansas late first quarter.
Look at that Oklahoma State quarterback. 2 minutes left in the first quarter. He's already thrown for 127 yards and a touchdown. So he's on pace for a 500-yard game. So Gundy doing Gundy things with his quarterback.
And Texas Tech, Wyoming delayed in Wyoming. I haven't looked at that at all. I'm gonna guess that is rain, lightning related, but we'll, like I said, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to that. Alabama comes out, and Jalen Milroe's first pass, just a real easy, throw it out into the flat, make it an easy catch, easy throw. It's one of those things that I say that Sark needs to do a lot of. Not something that you'd pick apart in today's game, but I do think game in and game out, let your quarterback make throws like that, and let Xavier Worthy make guys miss, and let your receivers be threats after the catch, and let your quarterbacks get into a rhythm. And at times today, it was hard to tell whether Quinn was in a rhythm or not, because I can't turn off my brain and ignore how bad the deep balls were.
Yeah.
If we cut all of those out, I can think of 4 deep balls just off the top of my head. If you take those out, he's 19 of 26 for 260 yards, and his quarterback rating's over 180.
And
you can't just say take away the bad stuff,
but 2 of those plays catch 81 yards were in 2 touchdowns were on very simple tosses to JT Sanders and Jonathan Brooks. 44 yards to Sanders on a little toss, and then Sanders outruns everybody. Brooks was 37 yards on his touchdown reception. So, I don't know if it. Yeah, you can't take the good and take the bad and take things away, but I mean, he threw for 260 yards, 80-something in 2 of his touchdowns came on 2 tosses that were really you and I could have made. So, again, I give Ewers a passing grade, but I'm probably more like in the C+ range. I know you said
wow.
Yeah, I mean, those deep balls.
I'm telling you, if I said that Quinn Ewers was a C+, there would be a thread on Orange Bloods calling me an asshole and like, Catch just trying to stir things up on a Saturday night.
I mean, C+ is passing. I mean, the C is passing, but I have a hard time going a whole lot higher than that after the deep balls. He did protect the ball pretty well. So there's things he did well, but there are just a lot of things that he can kind of tighten up a little bit too.
Paxton says Brian Jones ripping Quinn Ewers catch. By the way, it looks like Anwar Richardson will be joining us shortly. We'll have Brian Jones on Thursday. I've been curious to hear what that sounds like. If you were going to be uber critical of this performance, you would ignore the stats and say on the eyeball test, Quinn's not ready for prime time. I don't know how much I think that's fair. I think the stats are really good. By the way, Jalen Milroe. He can do that.
Yeah.
He can do that. If you missed Alabama scoring a touchdown on their initial drive here against Middle Tennessee State, what was that, like a fire drill? Like, I'm not quite sure what happened there.
Did he fumble a snap or something and then pick it up and scramble for a touchdown?
He ran backwards and then ran forwards and then ran sideways and then ran forwards and then stumbled and then ran forward, and it was a beautiful Madden play. I'll tell you what, Jason, let's bring in Anwar Richardson from DKR as Jason and I wait for a replay on this Jalen Milroe touchdown. Cool. The cool thing about having Anwar show up an hour into our postgame show against Rice in the postgame show presented by the Lowy Law Firm is that Jason and I, Anwar, are almost out of words describing this game. So by all means, tell us what Sark said. Give us your initial impression.
Well, first of all, you should be out of words because you've been doing this since 2:30. So I mean, you're literally 4 hours in, and we know you like to talk, Catch, but we even for you, that probably 4 hours straight
Hey,
is somewhat of a
I've been
stretch.
waiting on more. I've been looking at the clock and I'm like, God, I'm more on home games usually here before an hour.
No, you know, Sark on home games is tougher. It's when the road games when you know they have to catch a plane,
Oh,
then
yeah.
you know he's a lot faster. But here at home, oh, it takes forever. So I'll give you the from his perspective. I think his spin and I think his positive spin on it was, hey, you guys thought that this game was going to be played in a certain kind of way, but guess what? The defense stepped up and won the game for us. Like it was almost kind of like, you bet you didn't see that coming, right? And so he started talking about like, hey, sometimes you got to win games in different kinds of ways, and this is one of those days that the defense actually was able to win the day for them. And of course, if you go to that route and you stay in that, like that's obviously super positive. The stats, able to show that. I'm sure you guys have talked about Tavondre Sweat and the game, that he's had. Sarkisian talked about Jalen Ford. Once again, this guy just has a knack for the ball. He reminds me. Can't you remember Caden Stearns? That first half of his freshman year, where it just seemed like no matter where the ball went, he just was getting a tip or something, and he was always having But it seems like this is year 2 of that for Jalen Ford. So he feels pretty good, Catch, about what look their defensive line, the defensive performance, being able to hold them to. Is what they were able to do at the end. The 3 points for when it really counted, right? I mean, and to get the other one late, but being able to hold them, lack of conversions, really kind of controlling the line of scrimmage on that point. So I think he was really, happy with that. As relates to some of the things that you guys might have talked about, I don't think he was as overly concerned with the whole Quinn situation, and he was asked about the deep ball and what's going on, Kiki. He was asked about the deep ball and this and that. He's like, one day it's gonna happen. He's like, one day it's gonna happen. And he felt like they were close, and all these kind of things as relates to it. Xavier. So I think he felt, he felt like all the problems that they had today were fixable. He felt like the run game got better as the game went along, and I don't know if you guys have already touched on this. I'm sure Blake has already sent you something that CJ Baxter has some sort of rib injury, and so Blake's pretty good about saying those things. So they're hopeful and optimistic, but he also highlighted that Jaden Blue played well, and he was really happy with Jaden Blue's performance, on that side of the ball. Didn't necessarily mention Brooks, but of course, yeah, I think they did mention a little bit of Brooks, as well. Another positive Catch that he was very happy with was able to play a lot of his freshmen. I think he said at least 10 guys from his count of true freshmen played today. So in significant roles, not just special teams, like Trey Wiseman was on the special teams, but the Derek Williams of the world, and obviously Malik Muhammad, CJ Baxter, like you go down the list. So he felt really good about getting those guys in this game and getting them that kind of game experience, which is pretty damn good, when it's all things considered. And then of course he did talk about facing Bama. He was asked about that towards the end. And he did say like, hey, this is an opportunity, for them, a really great opportunity, for them. They'll have to look at the Rice tape, fix those things, but he's not going to shy away from that, going into this week. They'll talk about it, but again, use it as an opportunity, for themselves. And he also did talk about the balance, Catch, in Jason, about, hey, this is like the first game of the season. They spent kind of the off season trying to figure out, okay, basically what we're going to show in week 1 and what we were not going to show, and so he said this will be kind of the week where they go back to the guys and a lot of the things that they practiced on. Now they'll go ahead and say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing in this game, and it goes in and probably all makes sense to them. I think we also understand like it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game as far as that's concerned. I think those are kind of the main highlights that kind of stick out. I don't think he was asked anything specifically about like the Malik Murphy, or too many of things like that. But or his performance. But like I said, not overly concerned about Quinn. Felt the run game got better. There was one other little note he talked about as relates to DJ Campbell. He said that Cole Hudson kind of got banged up, and so that's the reason why they didn't go to him as far as the depth chart is concerned. When DJ Campbell got banged, they said got banged up this week, so they wanted to be conservative with that one and just make sure they have him for down the line. Those ends up being kind of the main highlights, I think, of what he was able to say. Give you a little bit more of a break. Now, you want to address that? You want to address that real quick, Catch, before I get
real
into
quick,
my
I was
thoughts?
just gonna say, Jason, you want to go check out those ribs?
Yes, I do actually. Yeah.
Go get you some ribs. Say farewell. Anwar and I will hold it down from here.
All right, fellas, I'll be on the board.
How much for one rib? How much for one rib?
I'll tell you one, Anwar.
How much for one?
He had that look like a man that was like, I've done an hour. I'm hungry. Go
I
have a
am
good
hungry.
rest of the night,
Yeah.
Sugamel.
I'm not gonna lie, I am hungry. All right, guys, have a good night.
My initial reaction to that, it was a lot. I think one of the first things I wanted to say while you were talking was, did Jaden Blue save his career today? I mean, Baxter doesn't get hurt. He's going to be the guy getting those Jaden Blue carries. And I thought Jaden Blue could I won't be defiant about this, but you could make a case that he was the best looking running back on the field today. I thought he was impressive. I think the DJ Campbell stuff's kind of funny because they're talking about him as a co-starter, and would they have gone to him today? But Campbell's been the starter throughout camp. I mean, on Thursday, Sark went out of his way to say, look, Campbell's the starter at that position. And then when they asked, like, how would you potentially get Cole Hudson involved? Now, maybe he already knew that they were going to hold Hudson back. I don't know. But he had mentioned there's no real plan for them to share the snaps, that if it's too hot, they need to rotate, whatever. But you could make a case that DJ Campbell played poorly enough today that being replaced could have otherwise happened, that Sark mentions that kind of, right? Like, hey, we didn't make a change because we were trying to save Cole Hudson. I don't know. Look, I had questions about the interior of the offensive line all year long. Talked about it in camp. They weren't good today. It's going to be a problem next week when they go to Alabama. How good that group gets by the end of the season remains to be seen. I think there's a big ceiling, but right now they're not good. And they weren't good in camp. It's the reason why Vernon Broughton dominated scrimmages and Alfred Collins dominated scrimmages. And it's the reason why Sarkisian didn't show up in media availability and single out any of his interior offensive linemen as guys that are kind of kicking ass. It's not a good group. It is the Achilles heel of this team going into the Alabama game next week. And Alabama loves their front on defense. However, the Texas defense right now, I think, is really good. I've said I think that game's going to be a little bit of a defensive battle. Mm-hmm. If I'm Alabama and I watch the game film, I'm thinking to myself, they can't run on us. They're not going to control the line of scrimmage against us. And we got to find a way to button up Xavier Worthy. And if you do that, I think this Texas offense has a lot that it has to prove if they can't go to Xavier Worthy anytime they want to, which they could today. He could have caught 20 passes if they really wanted. Rice still hasn't covered Xavier Worthy. They spread it around a little bit today, Anwar, but I think they're going to need bigger performances from A.D. Mitchell, who really did, I'll call it first game jitters, but he did not live up to the A.D. Mitchell hype of the offseason today, not as a receiver, not as a blocker, although if Quinn Ewers throws the ball a little bit better on deep throws, maybe his day looks completely different.
Yeah, I think there's a really good offensive conversation to be had, Catch, because I think if you just I think if you look at it like in a vacuum and you just look at the numbers themselves seem good, right? You would just look at it and be like, wow, good passing yards, Xavier Worthy's, almost at 100, things to that. But you tend to yourself, okay, that's fine. And then I think the what you're getting at, I think, is the important thing, right? Which is, last year, Texas kind of struggled on offense in this Bama game, and it ended up being the defensive battle that you were talking about, right? That's all that was. It was defense versus defense. Nobody can really do much or produce much from an offensive standpoint. The things that, because I know what we'll do, and what we will do in our minds is we will say that was Rice. It is what it is, but we'll say that, hey, that's an opponent that, it's not that good. You don't show a lot of things, and I get it, right? And those things will be true, but catch two things can be true, which is the execution was not there. So nonetheless, because you can tell me what's first game of the season and so on and so forth, well, I can tell you this much, catch, and I know that we saw TCU play in Colorado. And we saw a quarterback in Colorado that was slinging the ball around, and it looked like pitch and catch all day long, right? So we know what it can look like. The fact that we're still kind of like, man, one day Quinn and Xavier sure going to make a connection. And, even when Sark is talking about that, he's saying like, man, there may have been a pass interference on one, but he also felt like, people like focusing on Xavier, so you're getting a lot of the underneath stuff. Like, that's where you see the Jordan Whittingtons of the world, that they're able to operate underneath there. But he says they will take shots. They have to take shots, like, in order to keep, these defenses, honest. So that's going to happen. We know no matter what, that's going to happen. So that he's going to dial up those plays, and he'll dial up some creative stuff. So yeah, your concern is, like, your good part is you say to yourself, the defense looked amazing. And, all those, and they looked great. They did what they needed to do against Rice, which is pretty much shut them down. They made JT Daniels look like trash. I mean, if I'm just being quite honest with you, he looked like a horrible quarterback. Like, it is what it is. If he goes and looks somewhat impressive at the rest of the year, maybe, but there's nothing special about him. I don't think he has much arm strength, if I'm just being quite honest with you. But when we start talking about, like you said, that defensive line working on this offensive line, which is supposed to be a strength of this team, and it really wasn't a strength today, and it looked like a weakness, to the point where, I think you brought up a stat. I listened to you at halftime. At one point, I think it was Texas had, 6 tackles for losses. I mean, Rice had 6 versus Texas's, was it 2 or 3 at that point? And you're muted, Catch.
Sorry, my dogs were barking. I didn't want to. No, it was 6 at halftime, and Texas had 2.
Yeah, so they finished with 8, but nonetheless, that's Rice. Okay, like that's not what we consider to be. So so there's no kind of hiding of plays or hiding of schemes or anything that means that you can't execute against Rice. From a blocking standpoint. So that's kind of where you got to be like, hold on, let's see what happens. There's a lot of other positives for sure, and there's a lot of other things that they will definitely have to get cleaned up, especially some of the offside things, but definitely going into a hostile territory like they're going to go into, a place where Saban doesn't really lose. There are goods and there are some bads.
Real quick, want to go to a super chat.
Sure.
Overweight Lover says, defense looks elite. Ethan Burke is him. Should have had 2.5 sacks. He'll have nightmares about the one that he missed late in the game. Interior O-line better get their butts in gear.
I mean, he's so yes, the defense does look elite. And one of the things I started working on my my Sunday column, in the fourth quarter, I think you can kind of appreciate, Catch. You've been in these press boxes before where you're like, all right, let me get a jump start on what I need to get a jump start on a little bit. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that the defense looks good. Pete Lukowski has schemed it up, dialed it up, and you feel pretty good about what he's able to do with that. They've got the players in place. They're able to get young guys in, which is very encouraging. And when the young guys got in, Catch, Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams of the world, Anthony Hill, like Leona LaFau, when those guys got in, you didn't look and say, oh my gosh, like these guys don't belong on the field. You looked and said, all right, just like everybody else who was there. And so for them to get the quality reps, I think is really good. To your point, Ethan Burke, we would ask him to see that question all off season. Catch is what is going to look like at that other side. Like, you know, what Sorrell can do, what can Burke do. We finally saw. I think it took a little bit for him to get warmed up, and then once he finally kind of got warmed up and groove, you started to feel his presence a little bit more. And to that point, and again, you guys may have already mentioned it, but T'Vondre Sweat, I thought, played the best game I've ever seen him play.
He's the best defensive player on the field today.
Yes, and that kind of disruption is what you want to see consistently, right? Just consistent. That to me is when you are elite. It's not just the flash plays; it's the consistency that you see from him. We saw Collins obviously flash, right? But we saw Sweat just be as dominant. So you feel good about the defensive line. Everything was good from a defensive standpoint. And then to the other point that he had, which is, yes, offensive line, they better get their butts in gear because it's not going to get any easier. And they put some things on film that they probably wish they didn't put on film, but they did put some things on film, Catch, when Alabama goes and starts analyzing it and starts realizing, oh, these are the weak links here. These are some of the holes, and this is what we need to exploit. We know exactly where they're going to be going.
Adam says in the super chat, 1 game sample size, but do y'all stand by your preseason 1-loss predictions, or would y'all change them in hindsight?
No, I mean not off of. I mean, here's the thing, Catch. Like, if we put things into simple perspectives as far as today is concerned, like it's. I mean, at one point, and I don't know where it is now or wherever, but I mean, Georgia was beating like UT Martin, like something like 14-0. Like, maybe the floodgates have opened. Maybe that score has changed.
It was 17-0 at halftime.
Yeah. So, is Georgia, listen, I am not saying Texas is on Georgia.
Yeah, maybe we should, let's point out, let's leave Georgia alone.
Okay, that's the W.
Wisconsin is ranked, they struggled with Buffalo.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do Wisconsin and Buffalo, right? Let's do that. My bad. I started going down that road, and we both caught ourselves at the same time. Like, you might want to walk away from that one. it sounded good, but because I was like, Ohio State kind of, and I'm like, let me move away from those proven commodities. But no, not versus Rice. Not at this point. And here's where, Adam, if it looks like this next week, then I'll change it. Right, I'm willing to say, all right, if you're going to clean up some things, so on and so forth, that's fine. This is going to be a forgettable game. Catch, this is not going to be a game you and I are talking about in November or December, right? It just isn't, unless
late September.
Correct.
Mid-September.
Correct. But that being said, unless this ends up being the warning sign, and then we'll go back to it. But no, I'm still staying with my win-loss prediction at this point. This won't change it at all.
Adam, what I would say is I feel pretty damn smart right now. I've rolled my eyes at you people who've said things like playoffs. I'm like, the last time we saw this team play, Washington put it on them. I've been the Mr. Let's tap the brakes a little bit. I know it's not fun. But I'm going 9-3, and hey, they make it into the Big 12 championship game. But I have not for a moment thought that this team is top 10 good. They haven't proven that. They haven't remotely come close to proving that. I've spent the entire last month saying, man, I got questions about that offensive line. I do not give it the benefit of the doubt. I've been saying, I don't know, we need to see with Quinn Ewers. Like, I know he knows the offense better. And look, he had a 160. I have a Quinn Ewers. It's not a rant that I'm going to do onward. But I do have a Quinn Ewers thing that you and I are going to get to in a second. This is who I think Texas was not much different today than who I think they are. And I think they're probably a top 20 type team. Maybe a little bit better than that. The defense is really good. I think the defense is going to be really good all year. But forgive me if I was like, let's wait and see on this offensive line. Let's wait and see on this running game, and let's wait and see on Quinn Ewers. And I say that with a healthy amount of respect. People, Jason, let me ask you this, Anwar. Give me Jason gave Quinn Ewers a C+ grade.
Okay.
My perspective was I gave him a B+ because he finishes with a 169 game rating, which every Longhorn fan should take if offered before every game this season. You take that deal before the sports god, can even finish the sentence. He combines for 4 touchdowns. He doesn't turn the ball over. It's quite the nitpicking if he does all of those things and we only focus on the real true area of failure in this game, which was the downfield passing. So I give him a B+. Jason's at a C+. Where are you?
It's a really good grade. I think it's an interesting question. Let me just look at it. I want to look at a couple other things. So there was 6 of 15 on 3rd downs. It's not totally him because he didn't play at all the 4th quarter.
By the way, this is what I get. Siobhan's like catches really negative about Texas. I literally just gave Quinn Ewers a B+. Come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think your starting point has to be, if there's no turnovers at all, 169.1 passer rating. Like at that point, that's nothing less than a C, in my point, because look, if you just don't turn the ball over, you should at least get a C, right? I mean, because if he did that, what did he give JT Daniels? Like an F or something, which probably is well deserved. Yeah. I'm probably in the strong B area. Could be talked into a B+, where you're at. I feel good with B though. The things that I will nitpick just a little bit with it. It's it's deep pass for sure. That would hold me back from the A. Some of the little footwork things that we saw in the pocket, throwing off the back footish kind of things where you just like, don't love that, for him. Like, there's that AD Mitchell pass, there's a potential that if he doesn't try to do it falling backwards, that actually gets completed, for a touchdown because AD didn't have a step on the guy. So I think it's a B for me, catch. Still a good grade, still a passing grade for sure. Something that, but it's harder for me to go more than a B with that, especially offense really wasn't doing anything spectacular. I mean, they only had one offense. They only had one touchdown in the first half, yep, if I'm correct. So at that point,
I'm into the second quarter on 3rd downs.
Yeah,
it took a while for them to really get cooking.
Yeah. And what I consider the opponent as well, that's a curb stop kind of thing that you would expect. I don't think if USC is playing Rice, catch, I think we're expecting USC to drop 80. So within that, then not killing the opponent the way they should have, it's a B for me.
Can I give you my Quinn Ewers rant?
Oh boy.
Now look,
okay, let's see.
I gave Quinn a B+. I think for the entirety of the game, you could talk me into an A-. Okay? Now that being said, my man has had the entire offseason to work on the deep ball and to work on his chemistry with his receivers down the field. How in the world can his deep passes be so terrible? They're not even close. Every single one of them gave his receiver zero chance to make a ball. Like, the first ball to AD Mitchell on the left side just wasn't even close, and I don't even know what to say about that one. The second one should have been a touchdown, and he underthrows all of his receivers. In fact, he underthrew A.D. Mitchell so badly twice in this game that A.D. Mitchell couldn't even really come back and make a play on the ball, which is the thing that Texas receivers have been complaining about Xavier Worthy. Oh, he can't find the ball in the air. He can't adjust and come back and catch it. No one can when the balls are thrown that poorly. I'm a guy that constantly says, I think Quinn Ewers will eventually find his mojo with the deep ball. Boy, it was bad today. It was so bad, Anwar, that it has created a stigma that is somewhat overshadowing what was otherwise a pretty... If you take the 4 deep throws out of the equation, he has a quarterback rating higher than 180, which we'd be like, that's Baker Mayfield Heisman Trophy ceremony season kind of territory in terms of quarterback rating. This offense can't truly be elite if they can't throw the ball successfully down the field. And I'm horrified, quite frankly, by how poor the downfield throws were. I mean, of the times they went down the field vertical 20 plus yards in the air, they didn't really come close to catching one of those balls. He threw Worthy out of bounds on a play that should have been a touchdown. Like, again, I think Quinn on the whole played pretty well. I'm staggered by how poorly the deep ball is still being executed inside this Texas offense. And they can't win next week if that doesn't get better. That has to exist in this offense. Sarkisian tells us, I'm going to keep doing it. I think we need to do it. I'm going to do it once or twice a quarter. We have to be able to throw the ball down the field vertically. We have to go deep. Even if it's incomplete all the time, he's going to keep trying. I just can't believe. I thought for sure Ewers would hit on one deep ball today. At least one. Okay. And oh, by the way, the throw that he misses on the deep ball to Mitchell on the right side of the field, that cost me $500 on Prize Picks. I needed A.D. Mitchell to get 19 more yards, and it was there. It should have been 6, and it wasn't even close. Rant over.
Okay, for the rant, the thing about the rant, I'll let the Prize Picks thing go, but the thing, I cleaned up in Prize Picks this weekend, so.
I mean, I'm winning some money. But okay. That would have been a $500 win.
You should have went with the fantasy score. That was the easiest score. That was the easiest one that we talked about. That was the easiest win. You know.
I got Ewers. I missed on Mitchell in the 44
the Mitchell
5-yard receiving.
Gotcha. The thing is, Catch. The thing about this is now it's become a thing. It's not, at some point it becomes the thing that when there's streaks that occur, now it becomes the streaks that people are asking you about. And now it's a thing. We know last year Texas didn't have any passes over 50 yards or more. We know that Jatavian Sanders ends up, from a stat standpoint, he gets a 44-yard touchdown pass, but we know that wasn't necessarily just in the air. It's not over 50 yards, right? We know that, the thing in the air, and I think I'm having some connection issues here, Catch. So just bear with me.
But you're back.
Okay, so bear with me. So that's the thing is it's a thing, and the when you don't, and I think Sark is right. When he's trying because he has to put it on tape. Because if he doesn't put it on tape, people are not going to respect it, and they will just do some sort of cloud coverage and just do their best trying to make sure that Xavier doesn't do anything, and then see what else he can do. And sure, at that point, you'd much rather just give up the underneath and call that thing a day. So sure, I get it. And at that point too, then I can't imagine how many times Bama's going to blitz next weekend. Just
you know what's coming.
Oh, I mean, they're bringing the house. They're going to bring the house. They're going to see it, because they're not going to have the faith or belief that even if if there's time there, that connection can happen. So I'm with you on the deep shot. Like that has to be a thing that Texas can hang their hat on. That has to be a thing that they can do, because you can get away with that against Rice, and that's fine. But if you're not able to do it throughout the year, then almost it's a much more of a struggle bus, and that's not the kind of bus Texas wants to be on this season.
We know what Alabama's doing next week. They're going to think that they can whip that Texas, especially. I mean, look, Campbell, Majors, and Connor. We better get ready, because Alabama is going to. That defensive line for Alabama is going to be licking its lips, and they're going to say, "We're going to whoop that ass." And they're also going to say, "I'm convinced that Nick Saban will look at the film, and he's going to say, we can't let Xavier Worthy beat us. They're not going to run the ball on us. They're not going to control the line of scrimmage. The guy that scares us is Worthy. So let's not give him Kool-Aid. Go over there on him, and then give him a little bit of help, and then tell your defense they can't beat us if Worthy doesn't make plays. Go get after Quinn Ewers. He will throw the ball. His mechanics will get sloppy. They're going to bring pressure up the middle. They did that a year ago, and it got home. I think it's the thing that you got to watch for next weekend. The Texas on offense, if we're projecting ahead to next week, they got to get a lot better. The thing is, the Texas defense, I think, has a chance to really keep them in a game, like legitimately. And I know I haven't looked at the updated stats, but I know Alabama's up 14-0. I know that Jalen Milroe has started the game 6 for 6. So they're doing on offense, I think, what they want to be doing. We'll see what this looks like at halftime and then into the second half. Texas on the offensive side of the ball has to play better, and they got to play better in these areas that we've already known deep down are areas that have to get better. And look, here's the thing. You want my hot take for the day, Anwar?
Yes.
If Quinn doesn't get better throwing the ball vertically down the field, Texas won't win the Big 12 championship. That has to be better. And today, that part of the offense was awful. Now, doesn't mean it has to be awful next week. Doesn't mean it'll be awful by the time we get to the October and they're playing Oklahoma. Doesn't mean it would be awful by the time we get to the Big 12 championship game. But as of now, like they can't. I feel like Adrian in Rocky IV, when Rocky agrees to fight the Russian and she's like, "You can't win." Texas won't be able to win the Big 12 championship if Quinn Ewers can't get better throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah, the hope for Texas fans is that does improve, because like 2 point, if it doesn't, and it becomes a thing, like I said, it becomes a thing, then no, it's going to be a frustrating season. It's funny when I was looking at halftime and I was looking at the board and I was looking at just all the headlines there. There's a lot of frustrated Texas fans, going into halftime with that passing game and where it was at. So yes, it has to improve, because even when you get past Bama, we know guys like Dave Aranda. I mean, Dave Aranda knows how to dial it up as well, and we know he's quality, and so the road won't be easy. Alabama won't be a mulligan. It won't be the thing you look at and say, oh, and again, Catch, I know what we'll tell ourselves. We'll say, hey, the biggest games that you make is between game 1 and game 2, right? We know the things. We've got everything rehearsed in our head, but all of that, things that you say to pacify yourself, won't mean anything if they don't tighten these things up and they don't get these things done. And today was a day, Catch, when everything that we reported in the offseason about the defense winning the day, the defense winning the scrimmage, the defense having its way. We've heard about guys like Byron Murphy and Alfred Collins and Devondre Sweat always being in the backfield and all that kind of stuff. That was true. Everything we reported clearly was true. The flip side is that's good for the defense. It's not good for the other side of the ball. And so that side of the ball has to improve. And again, back to your original point, when you go against Alabama and in their home, you're going to have shots like that. It's going to be very hard to win, a 13-10 game over there. No matter how much you may think of whatever, and no matter what you think about Jalen Monroe as a quarterback, even if he has the ability to make plays with his legs, we know that's going to be problematic. So they definitely need to be able to go toe-to-toe and to be able to throw that ball.
A couple of super chat questions that we'll go ahead and get to now. We haven't gone to them while we've been talking about viewers and a few other things. Other than recruiting, what has Sark fixed? I mean, this is what this season's all about. I mean, at this point, the answer is nothing. But over the course of this season, Brandon, I would say the answers are supposed to become apparent at that point. So come back in like 6 weeks. I mean, be here every week, but ask that question again in 6 weeks. Let's see where we are. But yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to have that conversation yet, but Brandon, Anwar, his point's fair.
Well, I think Tom G also brings up a good point. The defense is fixed. So if you're looking for something that is fixed, I would definitely say that the defense from where it was in year one, which was really bad, as to what it is right now, I think you can say that's been fixed. And I think that would be fair.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know that Sark fixed that, but he hired PK, so you get credit for making the hire. I was thinking a little more literal in terms of Sark necessarily, but that's fair. I don't have any issues with that. Another buy or sell, or another super chat. This one from Grayman, $9.99 in the super chat. Thank you. This is actually a great question. Does Colorado win today if you put Brooks at running back and replace Sanders at quarterback with Ewers?
Oh, no. You're saying put those guys on those teams?
You're putting Jonathan Brooks at starting running back for Colorado. You're putting Quinn Ewers at starting quarterback at Colorado in place of Sanders.
No. Sanders put on a performance that made you think this guy's a future first-round pick, right? I mean, he put in – listen, and didn't watch, the games, when before they got to Colorado, so I only saw the highlights. This is the first time I really had a chance to watch it, and we saw him go against – they went against a team, I don't give a damn what it is, they went against a team that competed for the national championship last year. The team was in the national championship game, whatever the hell you think of TCU is. They beat that team on the road. So, no, by no stretch of imagination do I necessarily would I think that at this moment, not right now.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no, they don't, and I don't know what that means, big picture, over the course of 12 games. Look, Quinn Ewers isn't elite yet, and Sanders was elite today for Colorado at TCU. And so, it's one of those things where, look, Quinn Ewers got to be better. And that's it. And and not better everywhere, because he doesn't turn the ball over today. In fact, he made some plays with his feet today that proved to be pretty critical that I would give him credit for, because there was like a midway point in the first half where I was like, man, Quinn Ewers he just can't give Texas plays with his feet. He looked clumsy moving around a little bit today. People were actually asking whether or not he was hurt based on kind of early on what he looked like. But I thought he made some plays with his feet. He makes 2 first downs, choosing his spots when he can move. He combines for 4 touchdowns. He was more efficient. His accuracy needs to get a little bit better, but really when we talk about his accuracy and we say, well, he completes 63% of his passes, what we're really talking about is that deep ball. It's the downfield throws, but I feel like everything else was okay at a minimum. Like, I think there were times when he was pretty good, but the expectations for him this season are not to be pretty good. They're to be exceptional, and that's the standard by which he's being like judged by Texas fans. With a lower bar, I think people look at the stats today on Ward and go, he was good. We'll take that. I think because the standard for him is so high that he's being judged by the Sanders standard after today, right? It's like, no, he's not ready for the Heisman. Whereas it looked like today Sanders is going to be, if he does that every week, he's going to be a candidate for the Heisman at the end of the year, along with the Caleb Williams, along with some of these other guys. You know, we just can't overreact too much to this game. But the two big concerns, the deep balls and the offensive line issues in the middle, I mean, I think those are questions at least some of us have had going into the season. Those are ominous, but the deep ball thing I think can come together. I wonder how long it takes. You tell me, Onward, this offensive line, the interior unit, they get good by week ...
I mean, the thing is, Catch, this was supposed to be something that was supposed to be a strength on day one. So this is supposed to be, it was one of those stats that this was the first time that they've had an offensive line returning, you know, as a unit since like in the last 30 years or some crazy stat like that. So that was, so, you know, you're asking me that question and I don't know. And that's the most honest answer I can give you because, I mean, if you would have, if of all the things of the bingo box that I would have checked, this offensive line struggling a little bit against Rice would not been on that bingo card for me. So because of that, it's a great question. I would tell you this: if you, I'll answer your question like this: if you don't see improvement within the first 4 games, it's not going to happen.
I also don't know the answer to the question, but I'm just on a different side of the equation. Like, I know what some people have been saying about this offensive line. I know they return everybody. They weren't good in the interior last year, and that was, I don't know that Hayden Connor's a good player. I don't know that Jake Majors is a good player, and I don't know if DJ Campbell is a good player. In fact, based on today's performance, I'd say they're all subpar. They're not plus players if you can't block Rice guys. There's not a Rice player, there's not a player on the Rice defense that gets into the 2 deep for the Texas defense. Not one guy. Certainly nobody up front. None of those guys are playing ahead of Sweat and Murphy and Collins and Broughton. Like, none of those guys are playing ahead of those guys. So they struggled with that unit is ominous, but I will say I've been talking about this for weeks and months. Not everybody agrees with me because the idea has been, well, they were okay last year, so they have to be better this year than they were a year ago, and they probably are. This might be what the offensive line looks like when you take 2 of the top 5 running backs from power conferences since 2014 with regards to making people miss and yards after contact. Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson are 2 of the best 5 running backs in the last decade among Power 5 running backs. All of them. Every school, every back on every team. 2 of the top 5. So what those numbers meant to me was that they made that offensive line in the running game last year look better than it was because they did so much after contact, because they made so many guys miss. What does it mean when you take 2 elite of the elite yards after catch and make people miss guys out of the equation? I think today we saw a running game that was like, oh, it's not great. Those guys aren't great. And this is what it looks like when you take Bijan and Roschon out of the equation.
You know what's funny about that too, Catch? You remember all off season long when people would just ask us like, Jonathan Brooks, 1,400 yards, right? Jonathan Brooks fits in. And when we would say, hey, man, that's not an easy just cut and paste. Like, that's not an easy just replacement. And people would look at us like we were crazy.
People were like, buy or sell. Texas running backs this year rush for more yards than Roshan and Bijan did.
Yes. That happened.
All
multiple
the time.
Multiple, yes, all the time. That happened multiple times. And we'd be like, I don't know. Like, one guy's a first round pick, the other guy, they're like, come on now. I mean, so yes, this is reality. Like, this is what it looks like, and it doesn't look, that great. And I'm not quite sure, Catch, as it relates to that conversation, if he has an answer right now as to who his top guy is. It seems to be this little trend where he goes into the season and he thinks someone might be that person, and the light comes on. It's a little bit different. And CJ Baxter started off okay, but he was just okay. Did get some run later, but it was okay. But eventually Jonathan Brooks comes in, okay. And then to your point, like Jaden Blue comes in, you're like, okay. But there's also, can I just say one thing real quick? I know you've been going long, and I know there's some questions about the deep ball and things to that effect. And can I just give me my one little nitpick? I understand Sarkisian's desire to be aggressive, but if this whole season happens and we never have to see Keelan Robinson trying to run between the tackles, especially on the short yardage gain, I will be quite all right. I will be quite all right if I never ever have to see that again. I don't understand on 3rd and short what is happening. Why is this occurring? I don't understand, this in the going forward on the 4th downs and not taking up some of the points and just being that aggressive. There's certain times, whatever happens with Quinn, there still has to be a play caller that protects his guys as well. And so that was the only other thing I felt like was like, hey, you still gotta protect some of your guys. And I get, maybe you just want to try it because it's Rice, and when other opportunity can you have to mess around with some of these things. But that is probably a nitpick of mine. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's a little bit of a nitpick.
Fair enough. By the way, A&M leading New Mexico 35-7 in the second quarter. Late in the second quarter, like 10 seconds to go. It's actually halftime. Connor Wigman in the first half, 12 of 16, $175, 4 touchdowns. Evan Stewart, 6 for 103 and a touchdown in the first half. Noah Thomas, just call him Chris Carter, 3 catches, 58 yards, 3 touchdowns. All he does is catch touchdowns. Young Noah Thomas. Let's wrap up the show this way. And if you got super chats, we'll get your super chats before we sign off. Let's go game balls. Give me some game balls.
Well, first one goes to Devondre Sweat, right? That's my automatic game ball there. Devondre Sweat, if he plays like that, that guy's gonna make money. Catch, right? I think that's safe to say. Like, he plays like that. That's the kind of people that NFL teams look like and say, yes, give us some of this all day long. So I'll go with Sweat is probably my first one. I think a lot of them are going to be on the defensive side of the ball. How about you want to do like a number, like 3 each or something to that effect? Like, how do you want to?
Well, how about we go back and forth until we run out of game balls?
Okay, that's cool.
I'll give Xavier Worthy a game ball on offense for all of the conversation about him. He looked like the best player on the field when he was on the field. Rice still hasn't covered him. He could have had a monster day in a closer game where they really, they were really playing to win, and they felt like it was hanging in the doubt. He gets targeted a lot. I thought he was taking candy from a baby today. He in one game, I told this to Jason, don't put A.D. Mitchell's name in the same breath with Xavier Worthy for a while. Yeah. Xavier Worthy open all the time, like blocked hard too, and like just generally looked like a guy that's about to have a big season. So Xavier Worthy, big comeback after the Alamo Bowl game last year. 3 drops in the Alamo Bowl, constant piece of conversation. No drops today. 7 catches, 10 targets. And I think, one of the incomplete passes probably should have been a pass interference. Texas, there were a couple of underthrown deep balls that I think probably should have been pass interference penalties, where Quinn threw the ball so badly that the defenders just kind of invaded the space of the wide receivers. They didn't get those calls. It should have been pass interference calls. But yeah, Xavier Worthy, game ball.
I'll go Ethan Burke. I think he was very, very effective, out there on the edge. He answered a lot of questions that we had going into it, but definitely effective as far as, affecting the passer, with the sack or with, 1.5 tackles for losses as well. So yeah, Ethan Burke is a guy that moved the needle for me. So Ethan Burke would be a guy I'd hand out a game ball to.
I'll give a game ball to Bert Auburn, Mr. Field Goal. 3 of them in the first half. If he even misses one, Anwar, in the first half, and suddenly it's a 13-3 game, it just, people were already on tilt in the first half. Bert Auburn kept people from completely wanting to burn stuff down.
He really did, because you're right. If there was some of those inconsistent, we've seen some inconsistent kickers back in throughout the years. If there is any sort of inconsistency, it's way worse going into halftime than it is right now. So you're right, Bert Owens. Hey, that's actually a good one, Gatch. That's a very good one.
You asked the question last week in your Sunday pulpit, what would be the longest field goal that Texas would make this season? And they almost tried to knock it out of the park on week 1. He misses from 56 yards out. But I think that had the distance, and it was just missed to the left. Hits from 46, hits from 49. Good day for Bert Auburn.
Yeah, I would say so. I got one more. I don't know if I'll have another one past this one. But I think what you alluded to is really... We haven't had the conversation about it. Maybe you did before. I will give Jaden Blue one because he entered his game as the 4th-string guy. that
on transfer watch.
Yes, that was if those guys ahead of him do what they were expected and projected to do. Jaden Blue maybe plays in the 4th quarter. You're happy with it and so on and so on, and that's it. But the fact that in key moments he actually came in, does well, averages about 5.5 a game, has a run of 19 yards, and it gives the coaches something else to look at this week, especially of seeing if CJ Baxter can go, is he dinged up or not. I think when they start, when they go to Bama and we know that it's going to be tight in there, and they start figuring out what they want to do, Jaden Blue is the guy that beforehand going into Bama probably is a person you're not expecting to touch the ball. Now he's a guy that you got to start thinking about, do we need to get him some more carries? And so because of that, because he forced the issue, he would get one for me.
One last one for me. Malik Muhammad. I think he's the best defensive back on the entire team. He comes into he's a backup, but he finishes with a team best 5 solo tackles. Nobody else had more than 3. He's 2nd overall in tackles behind David Benda, who had 6. Most of those were assists. I think Benda had 3 solo tackles, 3 assists. Gets a pass breakup. There were only 3 pass breakups by DBs in this game. Part of that is because JT Daniels is awful and can't get the ball close enough to his receivers or the DBs. Rice is going to lose a lot of games this year, which makes today, I don't know, something. But Malik Muhammad, I think, is the best DB. He was the best DB in the 1st scrimmage. He was the best DB in the 2nd scrimmage. He was one of the defensive players cited to me in the 3rd scrimmage. And I think he was the best today of all the DBs on the field. On a day when Jalen Catalon didn't make the stat sheet, didn't produce a stat, which I won't go crazy over because Jalen Ford didn't make the stat sheet last year and still turned into an All-American. So there's still, don't give up on Jalen Catalon yet. But I thought Malik Muhammad was sensational. I don't know how you keep that guy off the field.
You can't. I think he played early, catch. So I think that kind of showed. And when they go back and look at the film, he's in that top tier of guys just because of everything that you're saying. And again, his knack for being around the ball and affecting the ball catch. I mean, that's what we always talk about. Like, if you want to get a coach's attention, you do the things that Malik Muhammad does, and when he's able to, do a pass breakup and things to that effect, like that's important. So yeah, I will be 100% with you on Malik Muhammad. I don't think I have another one, after that. The interception by Jalen Ford is fine, but this is like our top tier. Like that's where it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, well then let's wrap this bad boy up. There are no more super chat questions that I'm aware of.
Perfect.
Thanks to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm for being the sponsor, because they've been ride or die with us in the post-game show for 7-8 years. I've lost track.
Almost 10. I just started saying almost 10 years. I think that's easier.
Yeah, and it is almost 10 years. Specs. Blake, a quick little word from our sponsor.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Doing the wrap-up, we got one more super chat, and Michael ain't scared. See y'all next week. Texas 22-17, hook 'em. All right, Michael, I see you.
We'll take it.
For myself, Onward, you got anything else?
Nope. I'll see you first thing Monday morning. That's all I got to say.
It's time for Onward to go home, relax the rest of the weekend.
Write a column. What are you talking about? It's 8 o'clock. I got a column due in 12 hours.
I'm going to get me something to eat. I didn't have lunch, and it's 8 o'clock. For myself and Onward Richardson, and the thousands of you that watched the watch-along earlier today and the post-game show, great stuff. We'll see you next week. We'll see you on Monday, 6:30 in the morning, horns up, 8 o'clock in the morning. Onwar will be doing it big with the old-fashioned. Chad and I will be back in the swing of things at 12. Alex at 3:30. The Outsiders at night. And then, of course, next Saturday against Alabama, we'll have the Pine House Brewery watch-along. We'll have the Lowy Law Firm post-game show. It'll be a late one. I can't wait. I think it's going to be absolutely on fire. So for myself and the man in blue, Anwar Richardson, you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Later.
Welcome to On Texas Football, the day after. Jerry Hamilton alongside Bobby Burton.
Shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out, and destroy them quickly, as the Lord hath said unto thee. Speak not thou in thine heart, after that the Lord thy God hath cast them out from before thee, saying, For my righteousness the Lord hath brought me in to possess this land. But for the wickedness of these nations the Lord doth drive them out from before thee. Not for thy righteousness, or for the uprightness of thine heart, dost thou go to possess their land. But for the wickedness of these nations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand therefore that the Lord thy God giveth thee not this good land to possess it for thy righteousness, for thou art a stiff-necked people. Remember, and forget not, how thou provokest the Lord thy God to wrath in the wilderness, from the day that thou didst depart out of the land of Egypt, until he came unto this place. Ye have been rebellious against the Lord. Also in Horeb ye provoked the Lord to wrath, so that the Lord was angry with you to have destroyed you. When I was gone up into the mount to receive the tables of stone, even the tables of the covenant which the Lord made with you, then I abode in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. I neither did eat bread nor drink water. And the Lord delivered unto me 2 tables of stone, written with the finger of God. And on them was written according to all the words which the Lord spake with you in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, in the day of the assembly. And it came to pass, at the end of 40 days and 40 nights, that the Lord gave me the 2 tables of stone, even the tables of the covenant. And the Lord said unto me, Arise, get thee down quickly from hence, for thy people which thou hast brought forth out of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They are quickly turned aside out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten image. Furthermore the Lord spake unto me, saying, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them, and blot out their name from under heaven. And I will make of thee a nation mightier and greater than they. So I turned, and came down from the mount, and the mount burned with fire, and the 2 tables of the covenant were in my 2 hands. And I looked, and behold, ye had sinned against the Lord your God, and had made you a molten calf. Ye had turned aside quickly out of the way which the Lord had commanded you. And I took the 2 tables, and cast them out of my 2 hands, and brake them before your eyes. And I fell down before the Lord as at the first, 40 days and 40 nights. I did neither eat bread nor drink water, because of all your sins which ye sinned, in doing wickedly in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. For I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure wherewith the Lord was wroth against you to destroy you. But the Lord hearkened unto me at that time also. And the Lord was very angry with Aaron to have destroyed him. And I prayed for Aaron also at the same time. And I took your sin, the calf which ye had made, and burnt it with fire, and stamped it, and ground it very small, even until it was as small as dust. And I cast the dust thereof into the brook that descended out of the mount. And at Taberah, and at Massa, and at Kibroth-Hattaavah, ye provoked the Lord to wrath. Likewise, when the Lord sent you from Kadesh-barnea, saying, Go up and possess the land which I have given you, then ye rebelled against the commandment of the Lord your God, and ye believed him not, nor hearkened to his voice. Ye have been rebellious against the Lord from the day that I knew you. Thus I fell down before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, as I fell down at the first, because the Lord had said he would destroy you. I prayed therefore unto the Lord, and said, O Lord God, destroy not thy people and thine inheritance, which thou hast redeemed through thy greatness, which thou hast brought forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember thy servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not unto the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin, lest the land whence thou broughtest out say, Because the Lord was not able to bring them into the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he hath brought them out to slay them in the wilderness. Yet they are thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest out by thy mighty power, and by thy stretched out arm. Deuteronomy chapter 10. At that time the Lord said unto me, Hew thee 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount, and make thee an ark of wood. And I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables which thou breakest, and thou shalt put them in the ark. And I made an ark of shittim wood, and hewed 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tables in mine hand. And he wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which the Lord spake unto you in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, in the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them unto me. And I turned myself, and came down from the mount, and put the tables in the ark which I had made. And there they be, as the Lord commanded me. And the children of Israel took their journey from Beeroth of the children of Jaachin to Moserah, where Aaron died, and there he was buried. And Eleazar his son ministered in the priest's office in his stead. From thence they journeyed unto Gudgoda, and from Gudgoda to Jotbath, a land of rivers of waters. At that time the Lord separated the tribe of Levi to bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, to stand before the Lord, to minister unto him, and to bless in his name unto this day. Wherefore Levi hath no part nor inheritance with his brethren. The Lord is his inheritance, according as the Lord thy God promised him. And I stayed in the mount according to the first time, 40 days and 40 nights. And the Lord hearkened unto me at that time also, and the Lord would not destroy thee. And the Lord said unto me, Arise, take thy journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land which I swear unto their fathers to give unto them. And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I command thee this day, for thy good. Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heavens is the Lord's thy God, the earth also, with all that therein is. Only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. For the Lord your God is a God of gods, and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons, nor taketh reward. He doth execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loveth the stranger, in giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God. Him shalt thou serve, and to him shalt thou cleave, and swear by his name. He is thy praise, and he is thy God, that hath done for thee these great and terrible things which thine eyes have seen. Thy fathers went down into Egypt with 70 persons. And now the Lord thy God hath made thee as the stars of heaven for multitude. Deuteronomy chapter 11. Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge and his statutes and his judgments and his commandments always. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children which have not known, and which have not seen the chastisement of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his stretched out arm, and his miracles, and his acts which he did in the midst of Egypt unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt, and unto all his land. And what he did unto the army of Egypt, unto their horses, and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them, as they pursued after you, and how the Lord hath destroyed them unto this day. And what he did unto you in the wilderness, until he came into this place. And what he did unto Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, how the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession, in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great acts of the Lord which he did. Therefore shall ye keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that ye may be strong, and go in and possess the land whither ye go to possess it, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and honey. For the land whither thou goest in to possess it is not as the land of Egypt, from whence ye came out, where thou sowest thy seed and waterest with thy foot as a garden of herbs, but the land whither ye go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven, a land which the Lord thy God careth for. The eyes of the Lord thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thine oil. And I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, and lest he perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you. Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. And ye shall teach them your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thine house, and upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children, in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. For if ye shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave unto him, then will the Lord drive out all these nations from before you, and ye shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours. From the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the utmost sea shall your coast be. There shall no man be able to stand before you. For the Lord your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that ye shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if ye obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day. And a curse if ye will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God hath brought thee in unto the land whither thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt put the blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the curse upon Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side Jordan, by the way where the sun goeth down, in the land of the Canaanites, which dwell in the champaign over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For ye shall pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you. And ye shall possess it, and dwell therein. And ye shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments. Deuteronomy chapter 12. These are the statutes and judgments which ye shall observe to do in the land, which the Lord God of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it, all the days that ye live upon the earth. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains, and upon the hills, and under every green tree. And ye shall overthrow their altars, and break their pillars, and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and destroy the names of them out of that place. Ye shall not do so unto the Lord your God, but unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall he seek, and thither thou shalt come. And thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and heave offerings of your hand, and your vows and your free will offerings, and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks. And there ye shall eat before the Lord your God, and ye shall rejoice in all that ye put your hand unto, ye and your households, wherein the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. Ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God giveth you. But when ye go over Jordan, and dwell in the land which the Lord your God giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye dwell in safety, then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes, and the heave offerings of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God, ye and your sons and your daughters, and your men servants and your maid servants, and the Levite that is within your gates, forasmuch as he hath no part nor inheritance with you. Take heed to thyself, that thou offer not thy burnt offerings in every place that thou seest, but in the place which the Lord shall choose in one of thy tribes. There thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, and there thou shalt do all that I command thee. Notwithstanding thou mayest kill and eat flesh in all thy gates, whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as of the roebuck and as of the hart. Only ye shall not eat the blood. Ye shall pour it upon the earth as water. Thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of thy corn, or of thy wine, or of thy oil, or the firstlings of thy herds or of thy flock, nor any of thy vows which thou vowest, nor thy free will offerings, nor heave offering of thine hand. But thou must eat them before the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, thou and thy son and thy daughter, and thy manservant and thy maidservant, and the Levite that is within thy gates. And thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God in all that thou puttest thine hands unto. Take heed to thyself, that thou forsake not the Levite, as long as thou livest upon the earth. When the Lord thy God shall enlarge thy border as he hath promised thee, and thou shalt say, I will eat flesh, because my soul longeth to eat flesh, thou mayest eat flesh, whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. If the place which the Lord thy God hath chosen to put his name there be too far from thee, then thou shalt kill of thy herd and of thy flock, which the Lord hath given thee, as I have commanded thee, and thou shalt eat in thy gates whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. Even as the roebuck and the hart is eaten, so thou shalt eat them. The unclean and the clean shall eat of them alike. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh. Thou shalt not eat it. Thou shalt pour it upon the earth as water. Thou shalt not eat it, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee, when thou shalt do that which is right in the sight of the Lord. Only thy holy things which thou hast, and thy vows thou shalt take, and go unto the place which the Lord shall choose. And thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood, upon the altar of the Lord thy God. And the blood of thy sacrifices shall be poured out upon the altar of the Lord thy God, and thou shalt eat the flesh. Observe and hear all these words which I command thee, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children after thee forever, when thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of the Lord thy God. When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their land. Take heed to thyself, that thou be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God. For every abomination to the Lord which he hateth have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their gods. What things soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it.